All right, so this is the Afterburn. Okay, we got about an hour. So if you have comments or questions, you can start to line up. On the live stream, you can start typing them in. Okay? I don't understand why anybody would have a comment or question after the teaching on this particular topic, but hey. All right, we'll begin with Harold.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Wow, they let you out from behind the booth there so you can come out and ask a question.
Every once in a while.
Every night. Harold is the one that puts the slides up for you guys and everything, in case you didn't know. But go ahead.
Okay. You were talking about people with a long marriage, and I don't think anybody here has a longer marriage than I've had. So, but I think now we have a really good marriage, but through the years we've had the ups and downs like everybody else. There's been rough times and good times. And it's been a long haul going through it, and I learned a little here, a little there, and most of what you've been teaching us, we've learned through the years. And I want to say that it really does work, and that the people need to really listen to what you're saying, because I've learned that stuff. And since I've been here, I've even learned more. But it helps to, if you pay attention to what you've been saying and follow it, your marriages will get better.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Awesome. You know, I haven't said this enough, but I really should say this, because Harold kind of said it. I think marriage can be, it's got this sort of bizarre duality to it. It can be either, at times, the greatest thing ever. I don't think any greater moments that I've had in my life than in my marriage. I also think that it could be the worst thing ever, and some of the worst moments can be in your marriage, okay? And just realize it has the capacity for that level in each direction. So it's absolutely worth making it work, but you have to make it work. You can't just sit there expecting, well, I'm married, it should just work. No, it doesn't just work, because you and your spouse did not come to this with the same understanding and expectations of what it should look like, all right? Now we're gonna go from Harold, who has had one of the longest marriages in the congregation, to Brianna with the newest.
Okay, so quick little thing. When you were talking about correction and when the wife tries to correct the husband. So if you and your husband are covenanted, and then the wife finds the need to correct the husband, would that be considered an act of distrust towards the father, because you don't believe that he will be able to do the correction if needed?
Yeah, look, I think it's a good question. And you're talking about two people that are or are not covenanted. They are covenanted, okay. Ladies, there is a way. I don't want you to think you can't ever say anything to your husband that's corrective. There's just a way to do it. Okay, so it's not that you're correcting them, because the one thing I can promise you, there's not a man. There are boys that want this, but not a man. No man wants a mother as a man or a boss. Now, a lot of them have jobs, they really don't want a boss. So if they come home and you either go into boss mode or mother mode, not gonna work, okay? Now, however, from a submissive place, you can walk up and speak to your husband and say, have you considered? Or what are your thoughts about this? You know, you can bring and share information that's not coming from going over them, okay? How come you're not doing this? What's wrong with you? Why'd you do that? Don't you know that that's dumb? Or that you can't switch and sound like you're their mother or their boss, or you're the husband. But you can have a conversation about something that needs correcting, okay? So you're not gonna correct them, but you can maybe say, hey, I noticed something about this or that, you know, do you think maybe we should do something about that, whatever, or what are your thoughts? But not like, well, you know, what do you think? Do you think maybe we should fix this? Okay, don't be sarcastic, because then you're still up here trying to look down on them, okay? But come like you would hopefully do to a boss if you were employed in a company and you noticed something wrong in the workings of the company and you wanted to share it with your boss and say, hey, I noticed something going on. I'll give you an example. When I'm in a restaurant, sadly this happens a lot, something will go wrong with the meal, all right? I know that doesn't happen to anybody else, but it does to me, okay? But I will almost always ask for the manager, but I will almost always, if not always, respectfully talk to the manager. Like, what's wrong with the place you're running here? What kind of deal is this? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna say, hey, I've got employees, I know what it's like to run something. I'd want to know if something wasn't working right. I want to share with you because I thought you might want to know that some things weren't really working right. In my experience, what I experienced tonight didn't go exactly well. And I always get a tremendously, respectful response. Well, almost always. Sometimes you get that one that's not. But I mean, and I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking for a discount or a refund or anything. And I almost always give that anyway. But I'm sharing from the point of view like, hey, I thought you'd like to know, okay? I respect that whatever you do with that information is yours. Ladies, that's what you do with a husband. Whatever he's going to do with it is up to him. But you may want to bring something to his attention and share with him so that he has information that he may not have, or maybe hasn't noticed something, okay? Or maybe you're concerned about something that he has in control, but you can't see it yet. Like maybe your finances are right about here and you're almost drowning, and you say, sweetheart, I'm concerned about our bills. I'm not judging, I'm concerned. Please help me understand what the plan is, okay? Because I know you must have one or you're working on one or something because it's your job, whatever. But don't do it in a disrespectful, sarcastic way like, well, I know you've got a plan. Obviously you don't, but okay? But you're the wife. If you are not feeling provided for, you should be able to go to your husband and say, help me to understand why I shouldn't be nervous right now, because I'm nervous. Please give me comfort and tell me you got this under control, okay? And so that's really the key here. Did that help answer the question? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
And then one last thing I was going to just comment. When you said about knowing and having a relationship with the truth sets us free, and this is less of like a marital thing, but you could take the opposite of that and say not living in reality is putting yourself in an emotional or a physical prison. So it'll keep you in the same place. So once we have that relationship with the truth, we will be set free.
Absolutely right. And wait, don't go anywhere. Can you validate for everyone that I have made that effort to go from parenting into advisor?
Yes.
All right. Just, because I know I say this a lot about my children. And, and by the way, there were times early on where, starting around 16, 17, where things would come up and she'd be like, but Daddy, can't you just? I'm like, no, you need to do this yourself. And she's grown tremendously because of that, And so all of you can still do this with your children, okay? You have to shift out of parenting mode. If your children are young enough, start that at 15, 16. Start, slowly moving your way out of parenting into advising, okay? All right, Kip.
I was actually coming up because I wanted to say thank you in a way on the teaching for husbands and wives, but you've been doing it for a very long time. I know even before I was here and just listening to you on live stream, and Tricia was here, I hear a lot of people want to get married really fast, and you teach us patience. And it's funny because my wife and I, we both worked on ourselves for 7 years until we came to a spot individually where we could actually be together. And even then, we still came under your counsel, and it's been very wonderful. So thank you for that. And I wanted to share something else on your teachings that you've had on tolerance. But I was spending time in Birkat Hamazon as we say prayers for that. And a while back, I was thinking of how the peace in there that Yahweh sustains the entire world with the unmerited favor, kindness, and mercy. And if we are to fashion ourselves after him and we walk down that path, which you teach us to do, and think about that a little more. And I thought about that, well, what world are we creating? I'm creating a world with my wife, a life. And the Almighty, he's, okay, unmerited favor. Well, that's, favors are privileges. So I try and give that to my wife a lot, and she does the same thing for me. That's that tolerance side. And I thought about kindness. And I said, well, what is kindness? I'm starting home. If Abba does that for me, what does that look like to my wife? And I thought about that, looked it up. Kindness is that giving your strength to someone instead of reminding them of their weakness. I just give your strength, and you're talking a lot about that today as a man role, to give your strength to someone. And of course, we can do that many places, not just with our wives, but with each other, with mishpacha. And then the mercy that Abba gives us, with my definition that I understand of mercy being the suspension of absolute justice. So when things go wrong, well, when things maybe don't go the way I like, or because I'm having an emotional response, I catch myself, and that mercy is, even if it was something, suspend that absolute justice and have tolerance again. And that has really enlightened me as to how I like to live my life, as how I want to be a husband, how I'd like to be a congregation member, and how I want to look at my leadership, to have those qualities all the time. And I'm very thankful for that, because I wouldn't know those things if I didn't have you as my teacher and really understand those things and look into them deeper. So thank you for that, Rabbi.
You're very welcome.
You've set a good template for a very wonderful life. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so real quickly here. No, hey, that's great. So I hope that Kip and Tricia don't mind, but when they got married, as all couples do, they have their moments of struggle in the beginning as they adjust to each other. But to their credit, each one of them at different moments, I told, you need to adjust here or do this, and they both did. See, that's part of what made the success. There were moments where I had to tell her, for example, you need to trust him and believe in him and give him a chance. And there's times when I told him, you got to do more to provide, or whatever it was. But they took the counsel. You got to be able to have someone to go to, but then you have to be willing to take counsel. See, a lot of you will come to me and then go home and never do anything I recommended that you do. And so that's where sometimes it really doesn't work and it goes sideways. Also, I realized that Brianna said something or asked something I didn't actually fully address, which is, if you're not being submissive with your husband when the situation is coming up, are you not trusting Yahweh is actually going to handle it? And the answer is yes. Okay, just want to make sure that was really clear. Okay? Anytime you usurp, then now you become the authority and you're not allowing Abba to do what he needs to do. And don't think you're the hand of correction. Okay? Your husband might be the hand of correction for you. That's the proper vertical. Correction goes this way, not this way. Okay? It comes down, it doesn't go up. All right. Amy.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
I really hope I can articulate this well, like it is in my head. But so Kip said, several things that I had been thinking as well. But I really have a heartfelt thankfulness to you, Rabbi, for every teaching, and that you're never afraid to address anything or help us, or give us what we need, I should say, to do the work we need to do to make all these different areas in our life much better, so we can have an abundant life here and now. But I was rewatching last week's teaching, and even while I was here last week, it really, like Ephesians, when you went through and explained that, it meant so much to me last week. It just was such I don't even know how to really explain it, but when you gave that definition, it's this kind of love, that provides for, protects, preserves, delivers from. It's one that's going to promote what is best for. It was like, wow, that's just so incredible. I do want to get married again. I'm really hoping to meet somebody. I've been working on myself for a very long time. But I see in the meantime, that, and I've always been thankful, but this section really was a great picture for me, that in the meantime, I have all these things that a husband would do. And I've known that, but now I can see it in Scripture. So I'm very thankful for that. That was just really huge.
You're welcome.
And so I was taking even more notes today. And I also can look back, and I think I said this to you and Elder when I counseled with you after Pesach, that while I've been working on myself, and sometimes I get impatient, and so I always love when you tell your story, how you were impatient, practically depressed until you met Robinson. I'm like, yeah, I could relate to that. I'm not necessarily that way anymore, but I was for quite a while. But I thought, oh, shoot, I needed this teaching, now I can fix this. I needed that teaching, now I can fix that. I see that Yahweh has just ordered my life in such a way that I can correct a lot of things that would have been no good if I had met somebody when I thought I should have met somebody. So I'm really thankful that you give us everything that we need. And we're really without excuse, and I was thinking about elders' teaching when that thought came to my head. There's no reason that if whether you're a man or a woman and you want to meet somebody so you can get married, there's no reason we shouldn't be the best person when we do meet somebody.
Absolutely.
We're without excuse. And I'm thankful for the married people that get up. And I just love Kip and Tricia. They're very close friends of mine. And I have another, Wayne and Catherine. They have great marriages, and I thank them for being good examples for me, for what I could have one day. So thank you for just teaching it on every single level. Rabbi, just this in addition to everything else that you give us. Really a heartfelt thank you to you.
Amen. Amen. Appreciate that. Look, I hope everybody understands this is not, any level of this teaching is like what anybody else would do. And that's not bragging anyway. It's just because I'm willing to say things in a much more blunt, honest way than a lot of other people might be willing to say, because it wouldn't be politically correct or had we been told through 2,000 years of Christian spin on all of this. The way that I'm just letting you know what it actually is, so you can actually deal with reality. And so, I appreciate the opportunity to do that very much. This whole thing, by the way, you know what? I'll hold that thought for next week. I got an idea that I'll start already telling you in advance what I'm going to do next week. All right, let's go to Isaiah.
Thank you, Rabbi. See if I can articulate this well now that I'm up here behind the mic. Some thoughts. See if you can speak towards them. So you probably know the rabbi that wrote Garden of Peace. I think his name's Shalom Arush.
Arush, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've seen some like blurps of teachings of his because they ended up in the feed that I scroll through. And he spoke on men's emotions, and he says, it's really important for women to protect men's emotions because they're kind of more sensitive in the aspect that they're in this position that Yahweh made them to provide, protect, to lead. They're supposed to be. Just like the man is to be to respect the wife as the weaker vessel, and the woman is to subject themselves to the husband. They need to understand and respect their emotions because they don't need a mother. He kind of spoke on the thing that you're talking about that would criticize them or kind of put under scrutiny.
What emotions are you talking about? Because I may not agree with you depending on which ones you name.
They're just thoughts that are going around in my head, and I was hoping you would address them. So just the feelings of rejection coming from most of us are creators, and builders. The thought, or the feelings of rejection that come from, the kind of motherly thing that comes from rejecting every little thing that the man tries to do, That's it.
All right, look, there are a lot of people that have rejection sort of related trauma, okay? But there are a lot of people that don't. It all boils down, and even the rejection thing can still boil down into the same category, which is ladies need to be realizing that when men respond emotionally, a man, not a boy that's still growing into one, it's going to be because of a respect problem. Okay? And rejection still is a respect problem. You've chosen me as a leader, now you're not going to respect that, which means you're rejecting me as a leader. Okay, so that could be a rejection thing, all right? Now, if somebody decides they no longer want to be married to you, well, that is a rejection, but that's also maybe a recognition that this thing just doesn't work, or they just don't want it, you anymore. So we all get rejected to some degree on a regular basis. Maybe everybody should go into sales for at least 5 years, then you realize that you can get over it and not care about rejection anymore, because you'll have gotten rejected 99% of the time. and then you won't be fazed by it anymore. So I'm not going to go and say that emotion, because yes, a lot of people do have an emotion based on their traumas, and experiences, and they may have some PTSD to the idea of being rejected. And I see ladies go through that tremendously as well, the idea of being rejected and fear of abandonment, and that kind of stuff. But yet on the other side of it, if we're just talking about the men and women roles, husband-wife roles, really the emotion that I want people to understand that should be coming out of a man should only be coming out of treating him with disrespect. So when you try to parent him, that's disrespectful. When you try to be his boss, that's disrespectful. Okay? Did that help?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not disrespecting and discounting that you may have other stuff, because we all do have some other stuff, but that's not going to be the core for everybody type of thing, where I think the respect thing will be. Okay, some people will have other emotional issues based on their experiences that, now if your wife is learning you, then she might be able to adjust, if she wants to some of those things. She may choose not to. I mean, that's something everybody has to understand. Okay, because you all come with your own, emotion package. Okay, which means that you're sensitive to some things and not sensitive to other things that are uniquely sort of your way of your flavor of mix of all those things, compared to the next person is going to be a little bit different. See, that's part of the problem in a marriage. The husband and wife are not going to respond to everything in a similar emotional way. Something may be a very emotional thing for one and be completely like, I don't understand. The other one's going to be like, what's all that? That's nothing. Why are you all upset? And so we all come from different places, so we have different triggers. All right?
Amen.
All right.
And we give so much of ourselves. Something that's been going through my mind is that, actually, somebody I know went to a Tony Robbins event and sent me, and I figured you might like this, sent me some video of it. And he said something so valuable about it, is that, the people you've suffered the traumas from, spend so much energy and time holding this negative aspect and unforgiveness toward them, but you're doing yourself a disservice. You should be able to, if they've spent any kind of life on you and you spend any kind of life on them, you should be able to take as much time and effort to point out the positive and the good, in order to give proper respect, because you only poison yourself by holding on to and just trying to only point out the negative and the ugly that you got from that relationship.
Yeah. And I've said that on Rosh Chodesh and others. I mean, you've heard me say the exact same thing, right? That when you don't forgive, it's actually it's in the forgiveness teaching. You don't forgive, you're only hurting yourself, right? But the main thing is, and this is for all of you, if somebody hurt you, okay? If somebody hurt you, I would ask the question, would you put yourself in that position again? Hell no, right? But why would you give them the power to continue to hurt you even if you're not there anymore? Something happened when you were 6. Why is it still something that's traumatizing you and giving that person power to continue to hurt you? They're not still actually hurting you, but you're empowering it so it still hurts you. That's a hard thing to stop, but it's something that you need to do. But I think the mindset of realizing, wow, that thing that happened 30 years ago. Why do I still let it hurt me? Why am I giving that person the power to continue to inflict pain on me, even though I'm not physically letting them do it anymore? I'm not there anymore. Their situation's different or whatever. The person may not even be alive anymore, but yet you still are allowing them to create this pain in your life because you haven't found a way to package it and deal with it and release it. And that's where you probably need therapy. Right? You need to get someone to help. Therapy simply is somebody professionally who can walk you through the process, okay, of dealing with this thing that you don't know what to do with. Look, I've started lots of businesses. You know what I could probably show you how to do? How to start a business. If I've been through a trauma that's similar to your trauma and I've gotten through it, I probably could show you how to get through that. That's what a therapist does, hopefully. They have training to say, I know how to get you from where you are in that trauma to be healthy again, where the trauma is no longer hurting. The problem is, it's the familiar. It's hard to let go of. It's all you know because you've had it for so long. And then it becomes brutally hard to let go of. But I want you to be more afraid of the trauma, instead of being so afraid of the trauma thing happening to you again, be more afraid of that you're punishing yourself or allowing this thing to keep hurting you that isn't even happening and preventing you from going forward. Amy mentioned something I want to just correct. She said that when I was talking about when I was single, before I met Rabbi, I was depressed. I was never depressed. No, this is important. Depression is debilitating. Depression interferes with your ability to function. I was never impaired in my ability to function. I was frustrated. I was angry and bitter at times being single, and I felt rejection and stuff from other people, but I didn't allow it to ever get to a place called depression because it did not affect the way I did everything else in my life. Didn't affect me getting up in the morning and going to work, didn't affect me interacting with people. I was just not pleased with this one aspect of my life not being where I wanted it to be. But I never allowed it to turn into depression, because depression is a hole you have to try to climb out of. I was just in a certain level of dissatisfaction with my life and what was going on while living my life and functioning. That doesn't mean it was ideal and perfect. I was not happy a lot of the time, but it wasn't to the point where it was written all over my face 24/7. When you're depressed, you look depressed. It's hard to hide it. Do you understand? Okay? And so I just want to clarify that. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't an issue in my life that was distracting for sure. I wanted to be married and I was single. I didn't get married till I was 35 years old. Let that be something that both scares and gives you hope. Because some of you, some of you are like 27 thinking, I don't want to wait till 35. Well, maybe you have to, but the thing is, it still can work, okay? And so just keep that in mind. Okay, I wasn't on my second or third marriage at 35. It was the first one, the only one, okay? And that being said, though, I've now gotten 25 years with that. So at some point, I'm going to have more years with that than not with that. See, it's going to get there at some point. Okay? All right, Ashley?
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi. Before I ask my question, I just want to give a bit of testimony. If you have something traumatic happen, but you don't realize it has happened until many years later, before you start asking questions, call Rabbi. Because then when you can ask those questions that you want to ask yourself, ask them to Rabbi. He'll answer them much better. So,
okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Wait, I don't know everybody followed that. Let's say you go through something.
Just go ahead and say it.
No, it could be like you're going through some boxes of old stuff or some other thing, or you run into somebody that reminds you of something that you've totally either forgot about, didn't even remember even happened. And so now all of a sudden, it's bringing up and triggering a trauma response. So what she's saying is, as soon as that happens, call me, which is what she did, and I was able to help her process through that, okay? Because if you do that quickly, it doesn't become something you now own all like with all the rest of your stuff. And now it's another trauma you've now owned. Because I have some talent and skills in helping you package things and process things. And so, we cut that off at the pass before it really got really strong and in there, all right? That's what she was saying. All right, go ahead.
Yes, sir, thank you. For Colossians, is that how you say it? For Colossians 3, verse, verse 18, sorry. While I'm doing this pendulum swing the extreme opposite direction to try to learn submission with my husband, because I'm trying to get the marriage right, when he tells me I need to do something, or I lay it on him because he's the man, he's the protector and all that, but I still don't feel like it's the right way, and I'll submit verbally to him, but inside I'm like all nervous. What is something I can say or do to myself to calm that down so that way my actions are matching my thinking?
I think it just takes time and practice. I mean, there's, you already have a new desired mindset, a new target of where you're trying, to go. And you can't just, look, it's like if your back is out of whack and has been out of whack your whole life, you go to the chiropractor, you're probably not going to just go once. Because even though he's going to adjust it or she's going to adjust it, it's not going to get fixed in one adjustment, you know? I mean, certainly if you injure something and it just pops out of place, it just needs to be popped back in place. But if you've had a problem your whole life that's been developing in your back or whatever it is, they're not going to fix it in one visit. So you're not going to fix the way you act in a marriage in one day or 1 month. It's going to take the time to be paying attention to you and him, watching yourself, how you act and all that, and then keep making those adjustments to the point where eventually it becomes a new way of doing it. But to do anything new takes a lot of time and consistent practice or effort doing it over and over again, all right?
So I hate to use the phrase, but fake it, is it kind of like a fake it until you make it kind of thing? Because
yes. Well, it's not so much fake it till you make it. Do it because you know what to do and why to do it, even though you don't feel it yet. The feeling, motion creates emotion. Do stuff and then you'll feel right later. So it's not faking it, because to be submissive doesn't necessarily initially require that you feel wonderful about it, because you're not going to. You're only being submissive because you don't agree or you don't like the choice, right? And so, but you have to then at least pretend that you're okay with that initially by going through the mechanics of, he said it, I'm gonna do it. Or he said no, so we're not doing that. And eventually, you'll start to be okay with not being okay. In other words, where I don't like it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And by the way, this, for all of you, gotta pay attention. The number one underlying problem here, I'll say it more clearly maybe than I said earlier, both of you listen, men, women, is trust. Ladies, the reason you don't submit, you don't trust him. Men, the reason your wife doesn't submit, she doesn't trust you. Now, is the problem with trust hers or yours? Probably both. You may be worthy of more trust than she's giving you, or you may not be worthy of as much trust as you think. So, if you're the man on the side of the equation, make sure you're doing everything you can to prove and be worthy of trust. If she places trust in you, don't drop the ball. Ladies, he's never gonna get there if you don't give him trust until he gets there. So you're gonna have to make some effort to give him opportunity to earn the trust. All right, anything else?
Yeah, with the last follow-up, I just wanted to verify, when I struggle with that, is that truly because I'm just stubborn like a mule, or is it because I'm acting out of like a trauma response or whatever to call it?
No, it's probably both. Look, we are all stubborn as mules. I mean, as far as like changing and giving up authority once we have it. But I mean, the bigger problem is simply a matter of this is your habitual way of behaving. And so changing the habit is hard, especially if you really don't want to. Look, ladies, this may be part of your problem. You know you need to submit to your husband. You also know that he's not very good at it at the moment. But also there's a part of you that doesn't want to give up the control. That's the stubborn mule part, okay? You like having the power and the authority because it's really funny. You trust you, but has that gone really that well? Think about it, really. Well, I don't trust him. Yeah, but look at what you've done. Is it really that much better? Well, it'd been worse if he did it. Well, I don't know. Maybe he would have been worse temporarily, then better if you actually believed in him and let him make a few mistakes. I don't know. You'll never know either till you let him try. I'm just saying, okay? All right, thank you. Marlene.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that was similar to what I was going to ask you about.
Oh, good. Then sit down.
No. I wanted to specifically ask about, you know, how you talked about the Torah observance thing, and that kind of trumps submitting things sometimes. But what I want to clarify was something that happened to me is that if you have a conversation, you know, like with the husband, like, you know, the expectations, and you all agree on whatever you agree on, let's say it's something like tithing, you know, and so he's tithing or whatever, and then let's say, and you're tithing, because if I'm working, you know, and let's say it comes a time in this particular, like, you know, for any Torah observant thing, but this particular thing, like, where he's like, you know what, I don't really feel good about that or right about that anymore. You as far as me being a wife. I mean, am I just supposed to pray to the Father and just talk to the Father about him because he's his vertical structure? Or are you, because you would be the vertical structure?
No. Look, okay. So I understand the question and where you're coming from here. So let's be more clear. Submission, it's not like, Yahweh trumps this or trumps that. You still must be respectful to your husband. So let's say your husband, for whatever reason, when you start deciding that you want to keep Sabbath and this and that and the other thing, all of a sudden tries to then say, no, you can't, okay? Or let's say, like in the case that Marlene was saying, he was tithing and all of a sudden decides to stop tithing. He can do whatever he wants. What I'm more concerned with is whether or not he's going to try to stop you from tithing. You understand? Because I've had some wives say, my husband won't let me tithe. I said, are you making money? Because some of the ladies are too integrated with their husband thinking that because he's making all the money and not tithing, somehow that has anything to do with you. It doesn't. But if you're making money, you should tithe on your money. And if he says no, now you have a marriage problem, okay? Your marriage is not respecting both sides. And if you say, look, I'm not going to give you any grief if you want to keep eating pork bacon and this, that, and the other thing and not tithe, but you got to let me not eat that stuff and tithe and keep Sabbath or whatever, okay? So if you're not going to submit to him because you're submitting to Yahweh, make sure you don't submit to him with respect. You have to do it in a respectful way. Say, sweetheart, I get it. We're not on the same page here, but I have to do what Yahweh says, so this is not being disrespectful, but if I make a penny or $1, I'm going to tithe my 10 cents, okay? If I work, I'm going to tithe on it. If that's a problem, we have a problem, okay? But it's done in a respectful way. You're saying, look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you. Well, I'm the husband. Well, that's fine. Maybe you won't always be the husband, okay? Because he's the creator, okay? You're the husband, but he's God. Let's make sure we don't get confused who's who, okay? You might have to have a conversation like that.
So what I was asking, though, was that what do I do as the wife,
If he stops, nothing.
No, I mean, if he doesn't want me to, is what I'm saying.
Oh, well, then you have to have the conversation that says, I appreciate that that you're my husband, you have authority and stuff, but I have to do what God says. I have that response, and he's bigger than you and higher than you. And, if he's Christian or any sort of Bible-based thing, you say, I'm supposed to love him more than you, okay? And I'm supposed to obey him over you. And so if that can't work, we have a marriage problem.
What do you want to
put? What do you do with the marriage problem? Yeah. It depends on how he responds to it. Okay, you can counsel if he's willing to counsel. I mean, we got a lot of people married to people that are not in this walk, and getting them to counsel is very hard to do because they're not under the same authority structure. Which, by the way, for all you single people, let that be a lesson that this is one of the big reasons why you should never even date somebody outside of this. Because if you marry them and have a problem, you won't both have somebody you can go to that you both respect. I mentioned with Kip and Tricia, they were both able to come to me. They both respected what I had to say to them. Lots of these couples that I talk to, they both can come to me and they both respect me the same. So that means I actually have enough respect and authority to say, hey, you need to probably try this and you need to try that or whatever. And they're both willing to listen to what I have to say. If somebody's not under me, they're not going to listen to me. Which is why I say you got to be under the same person. I told you about that couple I married where one was under me, one was not. I said, well, you're going to have to pick. I won't recommend you get married unless you both are under the same person. It doesn't have to be me. I'm not here to control all that. You should be under the same person, though. Because that will work a whole lot better. Okay? Now, the other thing that Marlene was saying is so what do you do? Well, you're going to find out about your marriage. Because if you start to if you make your husband aware that the marriage may be at issue here, then you're going to find out how he really feels about you and where things really stand. And he may say, you know what, I don't want to lose you. I get it. And he may also appreciate your integrity. Remember we talked about the wife's behavior? Now that was talking about a believing couple, so to speak, right? A covenanted couple. But even if it's not, the wife's behavior still has to be, so the husband says, well, I can see that you have integrity. Because if you're going to make an issue about one issue of Torah, but obviously not in another area that he's aware you should be doing, he's going to look at you like you're a hypocrite and you have no integrity. Okay? Look, I used to go to employers when I had jobs, out there when I wasn't just working for myself, and I would go get a job every now and then instead of just doing my own businesses. I told them every time, I am just as serious about needing to have off for the Sabbath and for the feasts as I am in not stealing from you and giving you an honest day's work for an honest day's pay and all these other Torah issues. Okay? That was kind of my features and benefits. Okay? Yeah, I know it's not convenient that I need off for these days, but also you're getting someone who just as seriously is going to not mess up your business and respect you and treat things a certain way. If you're in the house and you're the wife, okay, and your husband sees you doing all kinds of things that clearly break Torah, and the other time you want to make a Torah issue out of one of them, you can't be demanding that you come to feast and he watch you goof off all day on Saturday every week. And he watch you do all these things that, he knows what you shouldn't be doing, probably, especially if you made an issue of it at some point. All right, Marlene, did that help? Okay. Hey, look, it's very challenging when the husband and wife are not on the same page. Okay, especially if you're the wife, you don't have a lot to do. Now, it gets challenging, by the way, from the other side of it. What if you, as a husband, and your wife doesn't want to, go on the same direction you are? Well, then you have a different problem. It's still a big problem because it's your house. And this is where things like, she wants to bring in the tree and turn the house into, the world of Christmas. And you say, no. And I've had men who are very weak say, oh, but my wife does all, why do you let her do that? It's your house. Well, that's the way we always were. It doesn't matter. You're now doing this, it's your house. Okay? To the wife, if he's bringing all that stuff in, it's his house. Okay? You just don't participate. The wife's job is not to participate. The husband's job is to provide and protect. He can't allow that stuff in his house. It's your house. Don't allow it in your house. I've seen men allow people to be guests in their house and bring all kinds of junk in the house. Why would you do that? You should tell people that can't come in my house. You got a guest room or a little maybe guest apartment set up, and your family members come in, your brother, your sister, your cousin, whoever, and they're going to bring in, pork and shrimp and this and put it in your refrigerator, and you say, no, not in my house. Okay? So there's a different expectation. All right, John.
Thank you for this teaching, Rabbi. I've been learning a lot and putting it into motion, practicing a lot of it at work because I don't have no women in my life to practice it to. And it's been helping my work situation out as well.
Well, good.
As I've been bringing this practice into work. Submission and the ladder, work ladder and all that. And I have some lady friends at work, and I talk to them about what's going on here and what you're saying and that. And one lady was kind of astonished what you say sometimes from the mic. And so I told her that she needs to start watching. You can see exactly where he's coming from and all that. But I feel she's kind of trying to get to the motion where she's at now because they're in church. She just left church and she don't know which way to go. So I've been trying to help her out, and as much as I could that you've been teaching and that, and I said, if you want to understand it more, here's the teaching you go to, but I can only give you the highlights. He can give you the whole thing.
Right. All right, thank you.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to go to live stream in 2 seconds. I have one more comment to make about that. All of you, please, and I'm going to say this very strongly, please, don't make the mistake of thinking you're going to take that worldly person who you are attracted to and somehow get them hooked on some teachings and pop their bubble for them and then marry them. Okay? Don't do that. It doesn't work. They'll say whatever. If they want you, they'll say whatever they want to say. Whatever you want to hear is what they're going to say. All right? So, no, I'm not talking about this particular person, but John, you dodged a bullet, though. You wanted somebody you were dating that was not part of this, and then you didn't end up getting married, which was good. Okay? And I told you back then, this is not a good idea. Thankfully, it worked out that you didn't end up staying together because it would have been a terrible mistake. Okay? So I'm telling all of you, please, make sure that whoever you're going to consider marrying is already covenanted. All right? Otherwise, you'll never know if they're doing it for you. And if they're doing it for you, it will not last. Okay, if they're doing it for you, I've seen this happen many times. It goes very badly, okay? So if they're doing it for you. So I would say, no, don't say, oh, but when we talk about it, they seem very open. Well, because they're interested in you. They'll say anything or do anything. All right? You're going to ignore me, some of you, to your own destruction, so to speak, but that's your problem. I'm just letting you know with strong warning, it's a terrible idea. It has a very 90+% chance of failure, okay? Maybe 100%, okay? It's just not a good idea. Oh, but Yahweh brought them into my life. Really? Not if he had me tell you not to do it, he didn't. Okay? You wait and meet somebody already walking, already submitted to the Father, already believing in the Son, already covenanted. If you are already not only covenanted, but mikvahed, I wouldn't go to anybody that hasn't made the declarations. That doesn't guarantee anything, but that's at least some sort of a checkbox to look for, okay? And ladies, I would want to make sure they're tithing, they're keeping Shabbat, they're eating correctly, they're wearing, men, if there's ladies, you're looking for a man, he's wearing his tzitzit. You got to look for somebody who's already heading in the right direction and walking it the best they can, okay? Look, it's one thing as an investor to look for a fixer-upper. That's not a good idea for relationships. All right? Well, I think I could work this one. I could fix this. No, that's bad. Oh, bad, horrible idea. All right, live stream.
Okay, from Janet Hoffman. So Rabbi,
No
1
way.
Peter. 1 Peter 3:7. Can we, as wives, actively seek agreement and understanding as well, or is this usurping our husband's roles?
Now, look, everything can go in both ways, all right? Each side should be actively seeking agreement. You should have had the expectations conversation so that you can actually be in agreement. You also have to live with understanding. It goes in both ways. Okay, ladies, you got to live with understanding of what his role is. And also understanding, look, if you've been married, I'll go out on a limb and really make it easy for you. If you've been married 10 years or more, you know exactly what you got. Stop acting like you don't know what you've got. Because I don't think anybody could pretend to be something they're not for that long, okay? Maybe 2 years, maybe a year or two. 10 years, you know what you've got, okay? I think a lot earlier than that. But I'll be very generously here, say 10 years. But see, this is the whole thing, though. You've been married for a while. Yes, you should be actively seeking agreement, but you should be seeking agreement because you already understand what you've got. And so you should understand how to approach them and how to work with them and where things can go. Okay? I mean, I don't think there's anything my wife does that surprises me and vice versa. We've been married 25 years. Okay? Nobody knows me better than she does. Nobody knows her better than I do, and because we spent this time together. So now that doesn't mean everything works perfectly. It just means that it shouldn't be a surprise. But the thing is, we get in the most trouble when we're not adjusting, okay? When she doesn't adjust, she gets upset with me. When I don't adjust, I get upset with her, okay? It's an adjustment problem. And so, yes, Janet, you absolutely, as wives, can actively seek agreement and understanding and have conversations about these things as long as you're not slipping up on top and dictating the terms of the agreement, okay? But you can say things like, I realize we're struggling in this area. My thought is, what if we could try this, or what do you think of that we could try this, okay? Let it be his decision. But you're throwing that out there. Look, I am the head of this organization. And you know what? Lots of people want to do all kinds of things. And you know what they do? They put it on my desk, looking for me to take out my pen and approve it or not. Okay, nobody's dictating to me to do anything. Anything that comes on my desk, I can say no. But I appreciate that they make recommendations. And my wife makes recommendations on a regular enough basis about a lot of things, and a lot of times I go, hey, that's a great idea, okay? That might make things better between us, or maybe better with this, or maybe better with that. As long as she doesn't start to tell me, this is what you need to do, and this is, you see what I'm saying? It's the approach has to be right, all right? But by this way, as the weaker vessel, as the fragileness of a woman, I can't just dictate in like a mean, harsh way. I have to say, I know you really want to do that, but we're not doing that. I have to find a way also to maintain my authority in a way that's respectful, to know that she is not going to handle it the way some guy may handle it if I beat on them a little bit differently, okay? Not so much beat on, but like impose my authority. Does it make sense? Because that's where we get into male abuse, where men are abusing the women by just dictating to them and dominating and controlling. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what the men should be looking for. Well, I'm the husband. You need to do what I say. No, run from that. Okay? Well, I'm the husband. I need to say no here, and you need to submit to that because that's my role, and I need you to trust me. There's a whole different way to say it. All right? But guys, if you're trying to control every little dumb thing, then you're going to get in trouble. Okay? My wife still, after 25 years, will come up to me about things that she should know I don't care about. And she'll ask me if it's okay to do this, that, or the other thing. That's very respectful. But she should also know that 99% of the time, I really wield my power very, very seldomly. Okay? And you can ask her. She'll tell you the truth. All right? I really don't. Now, granted, when I do, she doesn't always like it. Okay, so that can kind of seem more big then. But if she actually thought about the frequency, it's very rare. Okay, it just doesn't come up much. Now, of course, ladies, it may come up more if the issue you bring up was already settled and you didn't accept it as being settled. And then you feel like, man, he's just trying to dictate and control. Well, actually, he already settled this last month, but you're still doing it. And you're still ignoring him. So now it seems like it's more often than not, even though it's the same one issue. Ladies, can you own that a little bit? Okay? Because that can happen. All right, next.
Okay, from Rucky Rog, she had basically two questions. I don't know if they're related. It says, Rabbi, if a woman comes into a marriage, financially successful, owns her home, and runs her successful business, how does this work changing from single into married life? Is this problematic? Then she had a second part, is if husband has no knowledge of running a successful business, what's his authority role over this? Does the wife remain in charge of running her business? How does vertical structure work?
All right. This should be hopefully, wow, there's a lot of good pieces in here. All right. Now, there's a lot of good stuff. All right, first of all, marriage is a structure, right? Husband, wife, building a life together. A business is a separate structure. Completely separate structure, okay? And so if you have a business and you go to get married and you have a successful business, your husband should understand he has no authority in your business. It's your business. It's a separate structure. Your husband could have authority over when you both bring funds together for you both to use, and you decide what you're going to do with those funds that you bring together, but you need to talk about this before you get married. And by the way, to the person who asked this question, I don't care if you're successful and have abundance and your own house. If you marry a man that's not going to provide you with a house, if you marry a man that's not going to provide you with everything you need, and he's going to be just sitting back and knowing that you have the house and you have the job, don't marry that guy. Okay? Don't you marry that guy. Now, maybe you like your house and you want to stay in it. That's okay. Then he might agree to do that. He needs to be the provider. You can still make more than him. Okay? Let's say your lifestyle dictates that you need, I'm going to give it a nice big number to make it a nice lifestyle. Let's say you need, say, $6,000, $7,000 a month just to live on, just for a big, nice lifestyle. Okay? And it's not a huge one, but a nice lifestyle. Okay. And let's say you make $12,000 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever you make in your successful business. He needs to make enough to take care of the $7,000. Shouldn't need your money for that. You're never going to respect a man that you're so much higher than if he's not at least taking care of what he can take care of. Okay, don't marry a house husband or a house boy. Okay? Again, you know, there was no doubt in my mind. I'll give you an example with me. I told when I married my wife, I made more than she did. And then very quickly I didn't. My businesses went badly, okay? But I committed to her and told her, this will change. I will be the provider. And now I am. And so you just need to understand from a point of view, if you're the wife and you're already successful, you better find yourself a successful man. The man that you can look up to and respect, not a man who goes, oh, this could be a nice, easy life. She has a great business and she works well and she has a nice house. Go find a man that's already successful. He may not be as successful as you, but successful enough to take care of things. Who's going to take over the bills and the responsibility for the core needs. Does everybody understand that? Okay? That way it doesn't limit what you can do. Because I got some ladies that I know that make a pretty good living. So I don't think you have to find somebody that makes more than you. They just have to be successful enough that they will take care of you, that you don't have to work. And as far as your business, the worst decision you could ever make is to give anybody control over your business, especially if it's successful. What do they know about your business? They're going to train wreck that business in a heartbeat. Well, I'm the man. No, it's my business. I built it to what it is. And so you're going to marry me, you're going to need to respect that. Okay? That's important that you understand. Because I have a lot of respect for you ladies, and men, anybody that's willing to go out there and make something, build and create something that's successful. All right? And don't let anybody just come and just, usurp that, take it over, and just, take advantage of you. All right? All right, next. The children are all coming in, so we'll have to make this quick.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Agnes.
Okay. Kevin Newkirk, is there a connection with 1 Peter 3, chapter 3, verse 7, and Genesis 2:24? Rabbi, can you package the two for better understanding?
Well, I mean, look, they're all part of the big picture of all of this. I don't know that they actually package together. Okay, so 1 Peter is talking about, in the same way husbands live understandingly together, giving respect to the wife as a weaker vessel. And in Genesis, it talks about, for this reason, a man shall leave, father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. They're part of the big story, but they're not connected in the same thing. There's one thing that has to do with cleaving to as a new unit. So you're not under mother and father anymore. You're now your own unit, and you're cleaving together, you and your wife, against everybody, so to speak. All right? Nobody can come in between or mess with that. The 1 Peter thing is talking about how you're going to behave in that unit. All right? So they're connected from the bigger picture point of view. They're not really connected from they're trying to say the same type of thing. Okay? All right, anything else?
Sir, yes, sir. We have a few more. But Greg Wallen, if the wife doesn't trust and the husband is trying to do all that's required of trust, could it be that he's way off the mark? What should he do?
Yes, the answer is yes. It could be that he's way off the mark. It also could be that he's not, all right? Which, again, requires counseling, and you may have a marriage problem. Because you may have somebody that's not capable of trusting no matter what you do. And short of therapy that could help that, I don't know. But it also could be that you need to fix some things because you're not earning the trust. So it can go either way. So you need counsel is what you should do.
Olivia Dirth, Shalom Rabbi. When we do our roles the way he tells us, is this guarding his commands? And does our color affect how we guard? Or should we all look the same when we guard?
Okay, that's an interesting question. All right. So, yes, when you do your roles, you are guarding his commands regarding the roles. Okay, you're not guarding Shabbat just because you're married and you're acting like a husband. But when you're doing your role correctly, okay, it is one of the things that he has commanded us. He has an understanding of what he made man to be and what he made woman to be. And so that is part of that. As far as the colors, yes, they do affect how you do everything. Not whether you do it or not, but the way you do it and the way you feel about what you do, okay? And so for the white personality, Shabbat's going to be all about peace. It's the tranquility away from the world for a day, right? For the yellow, they're looking forward to the dancing and the fellowship and the, and those kind of things, right? The oneg afterwards and all of the fun stuff, okay? For the blue, it's the relational and the intimacy. And so you're going about it from a different perspective, right? From the red's thinking, hey, this is what needs to happen. It needs to be done, so I'm doing it, okay? From that very just straight sort of logical sort of point of view. So we're going about it emotionally differently. And our drivers are different, but we should actually still be guarding. So all four of those are guarding Shabbat, but their focus is on different aspects that they're excited about, okay? All right? And so that I hopefully, can kind of answer that question as quickly as I could. Next.
Morgan Gervais, if your husband is put outside the camp, does the wife have to leave too, even though she may not agree with the husband on whatever the matter was?
If somebody puts you out of the camp, then they should make it clear if it's you or just your whole family, okay? The last group I put out, the whole family was out. Okay? It could be a husband and wife where I say, you can come, but your husband can't. Or you can come, but your wife can't. It just depends on what the deal is, okay? And most likely, if it's the wife, that's the problem. I'm going to throw them both out because the husband clearly doesn't have his house in order. All right? Okay, next.
Well, last one, Rabbi. From Judy Mitchell, Colossians 3:19, does that include if a husband loses his temper with his wife? What if a husband has been verbally abused by his wife? How can wives avoid bitterness towards her husband?
All right, so Colossians 3:19. Husband, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Okay, look, if the wife has been verbally abusive, I shouldn't get bitter. I should decide whether or not I have a marriage. Okay? So there shouldn't be any. I can be disappointed. I could be hurt. I could be angry. I'm not going to be bitter. I'll become bitter if I allow it to keep happening. And then I should be bitter with myself because I'm allowing it to keep happening. Okay? So how can wives avoid bitterness towards their husband or creating bitterness in their husband? Trust them, submit to them, love them, etc. Seek to be that helpmeet. And if you say, but I can't do that with this man, you're married to the wrong man. And if you're married to a woman that treats you the way this describes, well, then you're married to the wrong woman. Okay? And so, look, it's the encouragement here is to, in verse 19, love your wife. But of course, if she's not acting like a wife, it's hard. And if she's unwilling to act like a wife, then you probably don't have a marriage. Just saying, okay? But also, you should be asking the question, what am I doing? Why is she acting this way? Am I allowing it? Am I causing it? How am I what's my role in this? I always ask everybody when we counsel an issue, what is your part in it? Do you have a part in it? That doesn't excuse what the other person did, but you may have a part in this that you can learn from. Your marriage still may be done or have a problem, but at least you can learn something about what you brought into the mix. Because maybe the other person way overreacted and is continually overreacting in an abusive way, which is the wording that was here, was about abuse. All right? Now, quite frankly, I don't even understand the abuse thing. From a wife to a husband. If a wife is bad-mouthing and verbally just out of control to a husband, I would never stand for that. I would say, look, you can keep talking like that, you can do that outside this house. All right? So abuse, I would think of more the imposing of the authority and power of a man on a woman. That's more abusive. Because he's going to make her feel like she has to take it and can't do anything about it. If you're the man, you have everything you can do about it. So if it's abuse, it should happen once, okay? And you should put an end to it right there and say, this is not acceptable. You do it again, we have a problem. Okay, so abuse to me is more than one event. Something happens once, you don't like it, it's inappropriate and all that other stuff, fine. Put an end to it. If you can't put an end to it, harder for the woman to do that though. Only thing she could do is leave. But she can do that right away though and say, I'm not taking that, I'm leaving. If you're gonna treat me like that, I'm not staying. That's your card, okay? And so this verse here in 3:19 is saying, look, husband, love your wives and do not be bitter toward them. Where would the bitterness come from? The ongoing little frustrations. You have something serious like this, it should never be tolerated. Nothing abusive should ever be tolerated. You should make it clear the very first instance of it, this is not acceptable. If that's what we're gonna do it somewhere else, or I'm leaving and I'm going somewhere else. Period. Is that clear now? Okay? Bitterness is the other nonsense. That's not abuse, it's not on that horrible level, it just never ends. So you get bitter about it, okay? That relentless, annoying thing that's not big enough in itself to make it, a divorce over, but if it never ends, it might be. You understand what I'm saying? All right? So it's not abuse, it's just irritations that you're not in agreement about. Okay? Look, if I tell my wife we can't afford Starbucks, now she doesn't drink that. I'm just saying, let's just give you an example, and yet she still goes every day and gets one, that's not abuse. But I could get bitter over it, okay? If my wife tells me, I need you to stop putting your shoes on the chair or whatever it is, it's not abuse if I do it, but it could get a really form of bitterness if I'm gonna ignore her. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's what we're talking about in these verses. We're not talking about those really big, horrible, abusive things. Those are things that should have zero tolerance, and when they happen, you say, that was the last time. If it happens again, we're done. All right? Does that make sense now for everybody? We should not tolerate any of that kind of nonsense. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get heated and yell at each other, but there's certain things you can say or do in the heat of the moment that comes to this level where you say, that's not acceptable. And if that keeps happening, I'm not staying. Or if that keeps happening, you need to go, whichever one you're in, okay? Period. All right? And by the way, from the general normal, I'm trying to make sure this is okay, because the last person said the woman was gonna own the house. It's the man's house. If you have a problem, if it's the woman that feels abused, leave, okay? Or if you're the man and you feel abused, tell her she needs to leave. It's your house. I know a lot of ladies feel like, oh no, no, if it's his house, it's his house, okay? So men, if your wife's abusive, tell her she needs to go. Ladies, if the man's abusive, tell him, I'm leaving. If this is gonna keep going, I'm not gonna stay here. Okay, because the authority has to do with it's still gonna be looked at as his house, all right? Scripturally anyway, all right? Don't stand for that stuff. Why would you? And I talk to people that have been doing this for years. And I look at them like, what is wrong with you? Why would you let this go on for years? But they do. Because I told you, the number one reason people are married is because they're married. They're afraid to get divorced. They're afraid to be single. They're afraid to be on their own. It's horrible. All right, anything else, or we could be done there? Good. All right, excellent.